In today's video, I'm doing a bone-in prime rib on a pellet smoker. Hey, this is Ricer from Dead Broke Barbecue, Wisconsin, and welcome back to the channel. But if you're new here, we try to help you enhance and amplify your backyard barbecue fun. And doing a prime rib this way might be the easiest way to be able to do it. All you're gonna do is get this puppy hot at the end so you can form a crust. So grab your knife and some butcher twine. We're gonna amplify some backyard barbecue fun. Today I have a 25-pound beef bone-in rib roast. And I buy the whole packer because typically we're gonna cook prime rib 2 days in a row during the holidays. So one of them's gonna have 3 bones and the other one's gonna have 4 bones. Typically, 1 bone will feed 2 people. It's a rough guesstimate, but that's kind of how you can figure it out. And today I'm gonna be cutting the bigger section because we have more people coming over. So we'll count it out, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's right about here. And you're just gonna start cutting straight down. Now you can obviously adjust it however you want, but for us, we need the bigger chunk today. Now if you get yours at the butcher, they're typically gonna go ahead and cut off this bone, and it just makes it easier when you're done cooking. But all you have to do, if you've done it the same way as me, is just find your end of your bones, and then we're gonna just start cutting right along them. Hit or cut a little bit, score it, and follow right along with that bone. And then after I get it scored, I get it up in the air and just start cutting it right back. Now we don't want to cut these all the way off, and you're not wasting this meat on these bones. They are incredible to sit and gnaw on later at night. That's pretty good. We want to get some of this fat cap off so we can expose the meat. And there's going to be some silver skin and all that. But I'm always very careful around the spinalis area because that is the best part of a ribeye. Right along here, this big hunk of fat, we're just going to trim it down a little bit, get some of that outer surface off. I typically on this will use a fillet knife and just run right along that silver skin. Now this isn't too bad. I'll still pick a little bit of this silver skin off. Once you get to this fat seam, you have to leave that. Don't cut that out because that's connecting your spinalis to the eye itself. And again, this end piece, there is a tremendous amount of fat in it. And we'll just kind of round this off a little bit. All right, so our floor bone is all trimmed up. Looks pretty good. Now we're gonna go ahead and start trussing this up with some butcher twine. I just cut a bunch of pieces. Get 5 or 6 of them laid out. And then we'll just get them on here. And I know that there's other people that know how to do this better than me, but it ain't too hard. I just go ahead, get it on, twist it, and then throw it in a knot, and just repeat across it. This one's a little short, but I can make it work. Then just take your knife and cut off the loose ends. So that's basically how I break down a beef rib bone-in rib roast. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start seasoning these up, but this is the actual cut that I'm gonna be using for the video today. And for this, I'm gonna be using some of the Montreal barbecue rub from Simon Barbecue. That's gonna give us our color. So let's just start sprinkling that on. I even put a little bit on the bone. You know me, OCD and all that. Make sure you're getting your sides. But to develop this big herby crust, we're using this prime rib rub from Rodella. And you can get this right at Costco. I've had it before and it's pretty dang good, and it's not too expensive either. But here, we're just gonna go ahead and sprinkle it on. And there is a lot of salt in this, but there's little pepper flake, black pepper, garlic powder, all kinds of things. Put it on the fat, still looks good. Now sometimes I'll wait till I truss it up and actually put it in between the bone. It will give a little bit more flavor on the backside of that chunk of meat. You can really smell the herbs in this. It's just awesome. Now this isn't gonna get up to room temperature, and it doesn't really hurt if you let this thing sit for a while on the counter and just slowly start to come up to temp. But I don't have enough time to wait for that. So let's go out and get that Vertical Pellet Pro fired up. Our first thing, obviously, let's go ahead and turn on the 2300. Turn the power on. And then we're gonna hit to low smoke, but we're gonna bring it up to 225 degrees. Now open our door and let all that white smoke out of the chamber. Now the Pellet Pro 2300 has a lot of cooking space in it, and I'm only doing 1 prime rib. So we're gonna put in our heating baffle because there's no reason to heat up above here at all. Now this is the white smoke that I'm talking about. Let that get all out of the chamber because you don't want any of that touching your food. But once it starts to burn clean, then we'll close up the door on the vertical and then we'll start preheating it up to that 225 degrees. We want to low and slow smoke this prime rib because it's actually going to help us get this even more tender. The hotter you cook it, well, in my opinion, freaking alarm every time. All right, you can hear that the afterburner is kicked in a little bit here and we're starting to burn clean. Let's close up the door and preheat this to 225 degrees. And I'll bring it back when we go ahead and throw that prime rib in. The Vertical 2300 is preheated to 225 degrees. Let's go ahead and get this bone-in prime rib in some smoke. So let's get this big hunk of meat cooking. Just gonna set it right on this shelf and we'll just slide her in. Close the vertical back up, and now I'm gonna set a timer for 1 hour and then we're gonna come back out and put in some probes. Now, being that I'm running at this lower temp, this cook is gonna take us all of 6 hours for sure. So make sure that you have a little bit of snacks on the table because you're gonna get hungry during this cook. That smell, it's worth $1 million. All right, it's been 1 hour. Let's go ahead and turn on our signals and get a couple probes into this prime rib. Turn the power on. And we'll just plug her in and then we'll just stick our probe through here. And now I'll just go ahead and open up the door. I think I'm gonna put actually 2 probes in. And it's starting to get a little bit of smoke. That's looking good. Get our first probe up. And you wanna make sure that you're getting extra slack on your cord or you'll end up being sorry if you can't open up the rack. There's my first probe, now I'm gonna put in my second. Same thing, just feed it through the probe port. Get her about right there. Get it plugged in. Feed this one up through the grate also. Pull up that slack. Now I'll just slide out the rack. Now it's really important that I get this probe into the center, and the best way to do that is just kind of measure it in. But remember, you don't want this end too close to the meat, so I'm gonna say that's pretty close. Now I pinch the probe off to be about in the center, and you're also gonna wanna hit right in the center of this eye. We'll get that in right about there. And the same thing here, take your probe, kind of find the center of that, and we're gonna set this one right here. That'll work. Push in the rack and close up the door. And now I'm gonna set a timer for 1 hour and just keep on coming out and taking a visual look at that prime rib. Now obviously my signals is Wi-Fi, so I don't actually have to come outside and check the temperature on that prime rib, but we are gonna pull this once we reach 115 degrees internal temperature. Then I'll let that prime rib rest a little bit while I get that vertical up to max temp. So I'll see you when we get up to that 115 degrees internal temperature. All right, we're 5.5 hours in this cook and we are reading almost exact on both of those probes at 115 degrees. Let's pull out this prime rib and then we can crank up the Pellet Pro to 450 degrees. And it's gonna be hard to see on camera out here, but we've got some really nice mahogany color. We'll just go ahead and pull out our probes. We're gonna hook them right here. Get this one out. But oh yeah, she's starting to look really good. Now I'm gonna take this inside and let it rest and loosely cover it with some foil, and then we'll crank up the Pellet Pro because we want this to finish off with some higher heat. So we maybe develop a little bit better crust on it. Push our grate back in, close up our door. Now with the Smoke Daddy, it's real simple. All you gotta do is just press high and it's gonna go up to that 450 degrees. Now it's 39 degrees out today here in Wisconsin, so it's gonna take a little bit for the Pellet Pro to heat up. I'm gonna guess about 15 minutes, and then we're gonna be able to get that prime rib right back in there and finish it off. The 2300 is pumping out some serious degrees. Let's get this bone-in ribeye finished up. Open up our door and slide back out our grate. Now it took about 10 minutes to get this heated up. And again, we're gonna wanna find our center, so right about here. That looks about the center. Get her in. And we're gonna go right back in that same hole that we were in before, right here. Push in the rack, and we'll close up our door. and I'm gonna monitor these temperatures. I'm gonna pull it right around 125, 126 degrees. So this is only gonna take about 10 minutes because this prime rib has rested and carried over about another 7 degrees since I pulled it off. All right, I got one probe reading at 124 and the other one's reading at 126. Now the one that's on the 126 side, that's not dead center, that's just a little bit off, but we're really shooting for that internal center temp. And I forgot to mention to you earlier, I'm using lumberjack cherry pellets, but I gotta have a drink before I take this thing off. Sweet nectar of the gods. Nothing better than having a beer and doing up a prime rib. But the first thing I'm gonna do is shut the Pellet Pro Vertical off. Just hit the power off. And it's gonna go into a 15-minute cool down, and it's just gonna burn the remaining pellets in the pot. God dang it, I gotta put my beer down. Sometimes I wish I had 3 hands. Open her up, and oh, she's sizzling all right. Nice color there for sure, looking good. Now it's not a crazy sear, and sometimes I don't sear it. Pull it out a little bit and get this probe out of here. Get this one out. Make sure you grab some extra gloves because the pan is going to be really hot. That's looking good and I can just hear it sizzling. Now I'm going to take it, put it on the cutting board and cover it loosely with some foil and give it about a 20 to 30 minute rest. I'll see you at the cutting board. All right, so this prime rib is rested for 30 minutes and the carryover got up to 135 degrees, and that means we're gonna have a good medium rare to medium prime rib roast. Now for not searing, we've got a great crust here. And sometimes you can get it a little darker if you sear it, but you don't have to. This is just another way to make a prime rib. Now we're gonna wanna cut off our string, and then you can just start pulling them out. Now I get to use my new hammer stall, and if you're looking for any of the knives that I use, check the links below. You'll find them. This thing here is incredible. Get underneath this bone here, and there is gonna be a lot of juice, but this is the easy part. Separating these bones. Just be careful that you don't have a big catastrophe and it falls off on your plate. But that's just a quick little cut. Now these are awesome. Make sure that you eat this also. There's a lot of meat on here, and around this house, we slice off a bone because typically the kids, that's what they want. So it's the moment of truth. Let's just cut right down the center for the most part, right along that string line. And let's see what we got inside. Whoa. Oh yeah. That is awesome. Nice and juicy, moist. And when you cook this at a lower temperature, you're really not pounding the heat at this meat. And that's a good thing. If you've got more time, let it cook slower because it's gonna be a lot more tender. And now you can see we even have a nice little smoke ring. Now on the outside of this, obviously it's gonna be more done. But before I slice this up, I gotta get these bones out of here. My cutting board ain't big enough. All right, well, let's just slice off a little piece right here. We're hovering right around that medium rare, carried over a little bit, but it's certainly not overdone. Now I actually took the fond from the pan and made up a little au jus, real simple. Wow, oh God, is that good. The crust on this is incredible. Oh, the outside seasoning with the Montreal barbecue rub from Simon Barbecue and this prime rib rub from Costco. Wow, this is so good. And the Pellet Pro 2300 Vertical, wow, it did a great job. It's so tender, so moist. Obviously you can see from the cutting board, it's just drooling everywhere. But I got friends and family coming over, so I gotta hurry this up. Give this a try, and you can do this in any grill. Just keep your temperatures lower. 200, 225, 250 max. But that's a really good smoke ring too. But a smoke ring on a prime rib, it just looks pretty. Hey boys, tell Uncle Farfar he better waddle over the table because I'm gonna eat his piece if he doesn't hurry up. Now this prime rib turned out pretty dang good, but if you're looking for it to be a little bit more rare, you're gonna wanna pull it at 122 degrees. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become a subscriber. Turn on that notification bell because you don't wanna miss my next video. I know you don't, but I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.